Welcome, welcome. And today we're going to talk about HubSpot forms. We're going to look at how to set them up, how to create and configure your very first HubSpot form. We're going to look at 2 pages. First is this Google Slides presentation. The second is our actual HubSpot portal. Now, before we hop into forms, it's important to understand this concept of contact properties. If you've used HubSpot at all, you're probably familiar with this concept of properties, but the way that we get here is we navigate to settings, which is up in this gear icon. I'm not sure if this is a gear or a cog. I think I've figured out it is a gear. A cog, I think, is the tooth. Anyway, here we navigate to the gear. On the left, on the left-hand side, we navigate down to data management and properties. Here, we can select our various objects to modify the properties of each of these objects. If you don't know what an object is, we have a video that goes over this that is linked in our YouTube channel here. We'll link in the show notes below. But today we're just going to focus on contact properties because that's what's relevant to HubSpot forms. So what are these contact properties? Well, think of contact properties, just to give you a brief summary of what objects are, as columns in a spreadsheet, right? So if I were to create a spreadsheet of individuals, right, and I were to have each row represent a specific individual human being, and each column represent an attribute of that human being, that gives us a framework for understanding what these properties are. Each of these properties represents an attribute or a piece of data we want to store about each individual contact, right? So we'll notice that we can search for email, right? We could also search for phone number. And then when we navigate to contacts, look at those contacts, each of these columns that we're looking at here, each of these columns corresponds, again, going to properties, to each of these listings. So we have it here, a table or a list of all of the properties or all of the specific pieces of information that we can gather about a specific contact record. Now, one more item that we should understand about contact properties. Each property can have a specific, and we're not going to go into how to create properties, that's going to be a different video, but each property, let's call this sample property, can have a specific property type. Okay, so we're going to make this a contact property, right? We're going to group this into contact information. We're going to call this is a sample property, right? And then field type. Okay, this is where we select the kind or the format of the data that we're going to collect, right? So do we want this to be single line text where somebody can type something in? Are we expecting a lot of text? Do we want them to bold or italicize any of their entries? Do we want this to be a phone number so that it's a specific phone number validated format? Do we want to give, for example, multiple checkboxes, right? Where we can say option 1, right? Option 2. Do we want, and this is where they can check multiple boxes, right? So I want them to be able to check 1 and 2. So I'm going to choose multiple checkboxes. What if I only want them to choose 1 or 2? Then I'll select radio, on and on and on, yada, yada. The point here is that we can have lots of different kinds of properties. Calculated and rollup properties are very cool. So is property sync, and we're going to get to those in a later video. But for now, it's just important for you to understand that each of these contact properties represents basically a column on a spreadsheet. Okay, that's what properties are. So let's get back to HubSpot forms. So how do we create a form? I promise all this property information is going to come in handy in less than a minute. Okay, so how do we do this with forms? To create a form, we first of all navigate to marketing forms. So over here in marketing, we'll navigate to forms. Here we are. We already have a form, which we'll look at in a moment. What's the next thing we do? We click create form. Well, where is create form exactly? It's right up here in the top right, create form. What's the next thing we do? We choose our form type, embedded or standalone. All right, now I'm gonna try not to get too confusing with this, but the fact is that embedded forms and standalone page forms are pretty similar. I would say maybe identical. I've been working with HubSpot for a long time. I've created hundreds, maybe thousands of forms for clients. And I'll tell you what, if I create a standalone form, then I will be able to, HubSpot still lets me embed that form in a page. And if I create an embedded form, HubSpot still creates a standalone page for that form. So I'll show you, I'll just select embedded form, and embedded just means that I can like have an HTML module on my website and paste the HTML code that HubSpot gives me into that module, and it will just render on my website. But we'll get into this in a minute. I'm just going to pick embedded form for now. I promise this will make more sense in a moment. Next, we're going to choose the template. So let's choose embedded form. Click next. So HubSpot gives us a bunch of different templates, right? Payment template, registration template, contact us template. It's actually very tempting to use these, but all it does when we select one of these forms is it just populates the fields on the form, right? That we want, that HubSpot is saying, oh, do you want these fields like ebook download fields or event registration fields or support fields where we create a ticket, right? That's all good and well, but I don't like this because it just gives me very little control over things. It's a good starting point, but I like to have maximum control over the forms I'm creating from the beginning. So I always choose everything as blank as possible, as custom as possible. In my view, that makes things quicker and easier down the road. So I'm going to click blank template. Then we click start. Boom, start. Add frequently used properties. Aha, I promised properties would come into play. So what are all of these things here? Well, first name, last name, email, phone number. This stuff looks familiar, right? If we go back to properties, first name, last name, there it is, email, phone number, right? Where are these all coming from? These are all coming from the contact properties that are here, right? So basically, I want to collect certain contact properties. I'm going to put first name. I'm going to drag and drop last name. You know what? I'm actually getting ahead of myself. My own instructions say to add the form name first. So let's just call this, information, let's call this event registration form actually. Okay. And we want the phone number for this. We also want to be able to send some snail mail. So we're going to want street, city, state, country. Let's try country, right? I also want another company name, right? Okay, great. One other point on properties is that I can collect properties on this ticket from other objects, okay? So I can collect properties from the associated company, right? So I can say also, what's your company domain name? And you'll notice that company property here will be a different color, and we'll see in a moment that it will actually update a specific property. Okay, now this will make more sense in a moment. I add form name, add form properties. I've done this. We've added first name, last name, email, yada, 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 all of the mailing information that we want. Okay, now we move on to options, right? So what happens after somebody submits this form? Well, then we send them a thank you message, right? We send them to a specific HubSpot page. If I select HubSpot page or external URL, it will actually let me click on one of my HubSpot pages that I have here. Maybe not the contact form since they just filled out the form, but maybe I send them to my product landing page or my home page, right? And then I can say, if they fill out a form, then automatically set their lifecycle stage to MQL, right? Send submission email notifications to the contact's owner. We can get into contact owner concepts later on down the road. We can also associate them to a marketing campaign. We can also have these submission settings, such as always create a contact for a new email address. What does this mean? Let's just read HubSpot here. Create a new contact when a form is submitted with an email address that doesn't match any in your existing contact records. When this is turned on, progressive fields won't be available. Basically what progressive form fields are, and this is only relevant if you have one of these hubs, Marketing Hub, Professional, or Enterprise. Don't take me here, HubSpot. Marketing Hub, Professional, Enterprise, Service Hub, Professional, Enterprise, Content Hub, Pro, or Enterprise. Basically what progressive fields are if your contact has specific values for a field, like if they're already an MQL, for example, you can use progressive fields to display different fields, right? So basically what I'm saying is if I have an MQL land on my form, it's going to display different fields, okay? But we're not going to get into that too much right now because this is only relevant to people who have marketing, service, or content, pro, or enterprise, okay? But I am going to turn this on, right? Then you'll notice that this automatically turned off. We'll get to that in a moment. Add link to reset the form. This removes any pre-populated content, right? Because if HubSpot knows or recognizes the contact, it will pre-populate the fields with the known property values. And then pre-populate contact fields with known values. This controls whether contact fields pre-populate with known visitor information. Right. So you'll see here, there's an error message that says pre-populating contact fields with known values isn't possible when always create contact for new email address is turned on. Now it makes sense why those two things would be mutually exclusive. What I'm going to say right now, don't worry too much about this stuff. This is more advanced HubSpot marketing strategy type things. And let me just tell you this. Number one, these settings are very easy to change in a form. Number two, you will learn very quickly which of these settings you want on as contacts come into your CRM. Third, we can choose the style of our form. Now, this won't matter as much if the page we're embedding it on has a specific CSS style that we're already, formatting things with, but we can change, for example, the font family, right? I can change everything to Courier. Okay, so HubSpot is actually making the upgrade, right? Because right now I'm doing this on a sample starter. Actually, I have a sample enterprise account that I can do everything on. But HubSpot's basically saying, you can customize all of your forms here with these different pre-made styles. And then finally, I can create a workflow automation where, for example, I send an email, right? And right now I have one of these available, but as soon as I upgrade to starter or pro or enterprise, I have many more of these available. Okay, so let's go back to our form and let's go back to find our place. So far we've navigated to forms, create form, choose form type, choose template, click start, add form name, add properties, choose our options here, and then we click update. Okay, now this is the next step. We click update and then publish. Update and then publish. And you'll see here, you get this form where it says embed code and share link. Now we chose embedded, we chose an embedded form, right? However, if I have this share link here and I type this share link in, look, it's a standalone page. So yeah, actually, you know what? I'm very, very interested to know what will happen if, thank you HubSpot, I create a form that is standalone. Does it look any different? Blank template. I just want to see this very quickly. We're on a journey together. Publish. Okay, so you see how we have this extra thing here where to embed within HubSpot, choose a form module in any HubSpot page and choose the form you'd like to embed, right? So we have this extra HubSpot tab here, but it doesn't actually do anything. For example, I'm able to select my embedded or my standalone forms on any HubSpot page and embed them. So what happens if I take this share link and type it in? Then, yeah, it looks, the only reason this looks any different is because I selected those different styles, but basically it does the exact same thing. So I was right. It happens sometimes that I'm right. So, okay, so that's what we do. What's HubSpot telling me? Remove the HubSpot logo from your forms? Nope. Don't care about that right now for this demo. And that's what we do with forms. Now, let's see what actually happens when we fill these things out. First of all, let's look at our contacts. All right, our contact records, these are the stock contact records that come with this. So if in here, I select, I want to say HubLab, and I say online, and I say hublabonline@gmail.com. Phone number 555-555-5555. There are not other required fields, but I do want to say company domain name. Let's just say google.com, and let's submit this form. So, dangerous site. No, that's okay. I'm gonna keep going. Oh no. Learn more about this morning. Recently found. Why is this happening? You know what? We're doing it live. Let's troubleshoot it live. Let's go to forms. Let's look at event registration form. Let's see, where are we taking people? Oh, sure, right. Let's just take them to a thank you message. Let's just say, let's move this. Let's just say, thank you. Let's update this. Okay, save. Let's back to safety. Let's submit this. Okay, thank you. There we go. So all we had to do to fix that was change our HubSpot, or change our redirect. We have not set up our website yet, so it's probably taking us to just this weird looking HS sites page, which naturally Chrome flagged as suspect. So let's keep this updated. Redirect pages required. Gotcha. I'm tracking with you, HubSpot. Publish. Good. Okay. So what do you think happens now after we submit this form? Look at that. We have a new contact. And look at that. We have an email. We have a phone number. And what happens if we click on this contact? Look, it has created a company record in our CRM as well and associated us to that company record. Look, now we have this company record. What happens if we navigate to companies? Wow, Google is now in our CRM. And how does all this information come in? Mountain View. I didn't enter all this information on the form. That's something that HubSpot automatically creates. So if I were to add the company domain name, adobe.com, look at that. All of a sudden, HubSpot is populating all of this information automatically with information that is publicly available online. So that's what happens. But what happens if somebody who is already a contact in my CRM submits this form? So let's go back to this form. Our favorite little registration form here. And let's get that URL one more time. Share link, boom. And let's submit, let's change the last name, right? Let's change the last name to ZZZ Online. And let's change our company domain name to, and you'll notice it's not populating this because that's just what happens because it's only pulling it from the contact record. It's not scraping all the associated records. So let's say adobe.com, okay? Company domain name, adobe.com. Create, and you'll remember this is a company property. So what happens if we do that? So let's go back to our contacts. Okay, our name has been updated. Now, what are our companies going to be? We are associated to both companies now. You see, because we can be associated, one contact can be associated to multiple companies. So it created a new company and it added it to our CRM. So that's one of the limitations of having multiple record type properties in a form, is you don't have a ton of control over that. Okay. All right, so that's what forms do. Forms can create records, they can update records, and that's about what they can do. We can use them to create, again, any kind of record type. We can have them create tickets. We can have turn on automatic ticket creation, and that comes right to our inbox, right? Where let's say we have a ticket form where we have ticket description and name automatically there. Now what happens if we do that? We have this, we have a ticket name. Help, I have a customer support issue. Please get back to me, please. And I submit that. Okay, then what happens? What do you think happens? Go ahead, say it out loud. My guess, not that I don't know because I kind of know, but my guess is it creates a ticket. Oh no, it didn't. Did it not create a ticket? Not ideal. Let's see how that happened. Event registration form. Now, look at this. This is how I troubleshoot these things, okay? This is how I troubleshoot these forms. I go to submissions. All right, got it. Thank you. Now I click view here, right? I can delete any of these submissions or I can click view. Let me see this view. So I know that a ticket was created. Let me see this ticket record. See, I knew it was created. So if you know what happened? HubSpot, I knew it would happen. I just had to wait. Okay, there's something that happens with HubSpot where you do something, you know it's supposed to happen, you know how HubSpot behaves in this situation, but you have to wait like 60 seconds for it to happen. And in that 60 seconds, you don't know if it's never going to happen or if the infamous HubSpot 60-second delay is just ticking down. So that's what was happening in this case. You remember when we were on this contact record, right? Well, It's always going to show up now, but the ticket wasn't there. And it took about a minute. It took about a minute for that ticket to show up. So we just went on a roller coaster ride through forms, right? We saw how to create a form. We saw how to create contact records and company records with forms. We saw how to create ticket records with forms. We saw how to update contact records with forms. We also saw how to create associations between objects, such as contacts and companies and contacts and tickets. Now, here's what I wonder. Will this ticket be associated to one of these companies? I actually doubt it. It's associated to Google. Why? Oh my goodness. How about that? Because Google is the primary company that I'm associated to. I won't go into association labels right now, but just to scratch that itch in case it's something you're wondering, if we go to the gear icon up in settings, let me just explain. I'm on a video doing forms talking about association labels. Oh well. But if we go to any of these records, whether we go to contacts or companies or leads, right? Let's just go with contacts because it's the simplest. And we go to associations, we can have these different kinds of association labels, okay? So I'm gonna search contacts to companies, okay? So we have a primary company label. It's not showing here right now because primary is just a default label. But basically you have one company that is a primary company. But if we were able to create these association labels, what is it telling me to do? Sales Hub Pro, okay. I'm not gonna do that. I'll do that in a test account in my sandbox on another date. But basically what happens is I can create these labels, right? So for example, I can say, oh, I have a contact who is an employee of this company. So I'll create an association label that says employee, right? And then when I go to this, Hub Lab Online is an employee of Google. So that's the primary company, but is a vendor of Adobe, right? Or something like that, right? Because so a contact record can have multiple different relationships with different companies, and you want to be able to track that in HubSpot. So that's the purpose of association labels. So we definitely went down a red herring. This is about forms, and we ended up in association labels, but that's often how things go with HubSpot. You are talking about one thing, and very soon you are, lost in a completely different subject, but it all comes back together. What do they call it? A wiki hole. So yeah. But so we have learned a lot about forms, and we've learned a lot about the objects that forms relate to. And that's the thing about HubSpot. Forms, it's not just some form. It's not just a Google form. It's connected to your CRM. Forms is related to objects. It's related to contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. That's what makes HubSpot powerful, is the relationship of all of these functions and all of these tools to HubSpot's core four, what I call the core four objects of HubSpot: contacts, companies, deals, and tickets. And if you haven't watched that video on HubSpot objects that we've done, I highly recommend you watch that watch that video that explains the core four objects of HubSpot. Okay, thanks very much for tuning in. I hope this was very informative for you in terms of setting up, creating your HubSpot forms and understanding exactly how those HubSpot forms create and update those core four record types, those objects in your HubSpot CRM. Okay, thanks very much. Have a great day.